everybody, you're listening to and possibly watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or even a mutant to possibly stream in. You okay there?
I got lost in Magneto's helmet.
I was going to say.
It's a big helmet.
I didn't get a refit.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
It's a well-endowed helmet.
I understood that reference. Okay. So we're back with you after a few weeks away. I know the last audio episode that we released was on January 3rd, so it doesn't seem like that long, but it's been, 4 weeks, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've
our last episode was was Aquaman too.
Right.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have Caleb during that episode because
I was in Dallas, I think.
So why don't we just go around and say what everybody's been up to? Why we haven't been
well, Bill, did you want to go first, or we could go?
Since mine's the most boring, yeah. I went to Philadelphia for work.
The city of brotherly love. Come on.
I will say this. I've only done this a few times in my life, and I'm not talking like New Jersey Transit trains. I'm talking like an actual like Amtrak or Acela train. Have you guys ever taken a train at night?
Yeah. Only like a city train, not like a...
Yeah, but like a real... Like you said,
yeah.
Steve, there's a sexiness about it.
There kind of is. And also kind of eerie, too.
It doesn't feel like you're in America for like a few split seconds.
Yeah.
You know, it feels very European, or at least that's just what I have in my head. Like, you know, like either David Bowie or the Walker Brothers playing, you know. And that was a good part of the show, but we had a team building exercise in Philadelphia. So we were able to go over after MLK Day.
Okay.
2 days. So these people that I've been working with since beginning of December, I finally met them in person. Only 3 or 4 people out of a team of 38 that I've met before in person. So it was a nice little excursion in terms of work stuff, but it was still a work trip. So you know, how much fun are you gonna have? But, that's what I did. You guys did much more interesting stuff on our break.
I don't know. Was it that interesting? So I in January for the first half for the first couple of weeks, I did nothing other than work. And then the hubby and I went down to the Bahamas, which was great. So we missed almost all of like the deep Arctic freeze that came through, and it was just awful throughout the country. And I think Caleb might mention something about that. But we had a really great time. We were staying with friends, so we weren't at a hotel or anything. We were just right on the beach. Got to have some great food because one of our friends, John, is an amazing cook. So he made dinner for us pretty much every night. And we just got to experience the sun, the sand. And my Kindle was my best friend. I read a lot of books, but not so much comics. I did read a couple graphic novels. Did actually finally get the graphic novel adaptation of Wool, which was great. That was by Jimmy Palmiotti, but the rest of it was just prose books. I don't know why I did this.
For those of you who are listening at home, Bill's shaking his head like, "What are you doing?" So we actually had a very interesting conversation about this, which will play into some of the stuff I did too, but. Steve and I both have something in common. When we go on vacations, I mean, arguably depending on the vacation, right? But like if we're going to a beach setting, if there's going to be a lot of like sand and water situation, we both take veritable libraries with us, right? Like that is an amazing beach vacation for me. I want to sit my butt in the sand at sunrise with a giant cup of Coke and rum and not move and just read till the sun goes back down. That is my perfect beach vacation. Bill does not read on vacation.
No.
He does not understand this concept.
I will listen to stuff, but it's too close to work for me.
Yeah.
I think that's why. And I'd much rather spend the time, if you were going to be spending time reading, I'd rather go to local shops. I'd rather go explore. That's just the way I'm wired. I wouldn't waste a location on reading. I know you real like I might read it to Jersey Shore because I've been there 1,000 fucking times.
Right.
But when it's when it's a vacation destination, that's nothing I would do. I would bring reading material with me for like the airport and stuff like that.
Right.
But that's nothing I do.
Yeah, so if I'm going to the beach, if I'm going somewhere down the Gulf Coast, because Arkansas, closest beach really is Gulf Coast. Like that's like everything is just souvenir shops, right? Like it's all just mass produced crap that I like. If you've seen it once, you've seen it all the time. Like there's only so many fake shark teeth in a bottle I can look at. But
shot glasses,
a few months ago when I went to Chicago, right? Like, did I take stuff to read? Sure, but I didn't read anything while I was there. I walked around, met Wendy for lunch, just like hung out with people, met our friend Asha. And so it really depends for me on the setting. Like if I'm going to a really urban area, especially an urban area that I'm not from, like I'm going to pull a bill, right? I'm just going to go I'm going to get a buzz going and then just go walk around the city. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah. I might buy 1,000 books on that trip,
right? Yeah,
but I won't read
them. Yeah. See, for me, it was just beautiful setting. It was being able to read in such a beautiful setting. Like I went out into the ocean every day, which Jason was like shocked at me because usually when I'm at the beach, I don't even bother with the water. But I was out there every day in the water doing we basically had a private beach. It was awesome. Just walking, and floating around, swimming. It was fun. But then afterwards, I'd come back. We'd warm ourselves on the patio. I'd have my Kindle with me, or if it got super hot and sunny during the day and I need to be inside, I'd read the Kindle. Like it was good. I got a lot of reading done. It was
nice.
But then I came back. So
it's always the worst part of vacation. So right before Christmas, Roger, it was right after Christmas, the day after Christmas. Roger and I jumped in the car and we drove to Dallas for a week. I love Dallas. For those of you who know me, I'm a huge football fan, and so Dallas Cowboys. It's my team. Much to Bill's chagrin, he likes to, Bill's team put me out this year, and
but I have not rubbed it in.
You have not. You have been very gracious.
Wired that way.
Yeah,
I hate people like that.
Yeah,
you've been saying it for at least 7 days before it happened of any given Sunday.
Yeah.
Which, in the postseason can also be any given Saturday for me.
Or Friday.
But I am not one of those people. I've never understood that. Yeah, there's teams I kind of hate. But very often it's like for rationales that go beyond sports, whether it's like team ownership or a really repulsive fan base.
Yeah. Also the Patriots.
And especially the Eagles. Yeah. The Eagles, I will never, ever, ever, ever go to another game, another home game, another Eagles home game.
It's crazy.
They will agree with each other and beat the shit out of each other. Yeah. It's insane. It's insane. Unless it was like a luxury box situation and I was like cool with every person in that luxury box, never doing that again. Ever.
Oh.
Yeah.
But that's all my family, by the way.
Caleb had a first. So this is
really so while we were there, I got to attend my first Cowboys game. I've never been to an NFL game before that. Was at the notorious Cowboys Lions game, right? Where the botched call at the end and then the botched play calls at the end and all the stuff, right? It was all my fault because I was there. So that happened. And what was funny is everybody at home knew what was going on because you can hear the commentary, right? Like the people on TV are like talking. You don't get that when you're standing, and also especially not when you're in the part of the stands that we can afford. Like we're not down near the field. We don't roll like that. But like we had great high seats where you could see everything, but you don't hear what's going on, right? So we're all just like, yeah, the Cowboys won, but none of us know why. Like we're like, what happened? And so it was leaving there. Like I immediately just flipped over to satellite radio to the NFL channel to figure out why my team won. Cause I didn't know. I was happy. And so caught up on all the drama. My husband's birthday is December 27th. And so we kicked it in there for his birthday, had a really great time, came back, New Year's with friends. After that, had a big work convention here in Little Rock. Gave a pretty good presentation in front of about 1,500 people, which was really nice. It went really well. And then after that, the winter apocalypse hit Arkansas. We got that big Arctic blast that rolled down. Lots of snow, single digits for a few days. I work, as a volunteer with the unsheltered population here with a group called the Van. And whenever it drops below freezing, if there's winter precipitation or it's below 25 degrees, we open up emergency shelters. And so our team and I did 12-hour shifts. I ran nights. Aaron, the day folks, did his thing. So for about 4 days, just, did that. So which is about all you can do. So I'm very glad it's above freezing. I never want it to be below 33 degrees again. That would suit me just fine.
All right, so we're gonna Steve can just relax for a second, maybe read if he wants to. But for a minute, Caleb and I are gonna get into football for 1 minute here.
Ooh, yeah.
And I'm gonna provide the Super Bowl scenarios, and you tell me who you are rooting for in that situation.
Okay.
Can I show the graphic that I had prepared for this?
Please do. I didn't know you had one, but go ahead.
Sneaky Steve.
It's just a graphic.
I guess. Go ahead, there.
It's been popularized over the past week since. So I'm gonna put it up here because it fits with our.
Now I get it. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Yes. You know what's funny? Everybody's talking about this because Kelsey, it's Jason Kelsey for those who are listening, right? Shirtless at his brother's game, the Kansas City game against where Kansas City beat Buffalo. But everybody's talking about the fact that he's shirtless for good reason. It's a nice view, right? No one's really mentioned the fact that Jason Kelsey was wearing sweatpants inside a box seat to his brother's game. That's what I find fascinating. Like,
if you notice the footage when he came in, because if you've seen the footage where he's taking the shot out of the bowling ball with Bill's Mafia in the parking lot, he was in sweatpants then.
I love that he's just like. He's in sweatpants. No one's talking about that. It's awesome.
The other thing that I think people are going to be discovering is just how good a podcast host he is.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, I think, some very big offers coming this way for commentary.
I was going to say,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I would love him and Tony Romo to call a game together.
I don't think you'll ever even get two players to call a game together. I don't think
that would be so good.
Yeah.
Those two would just geek out.
Yeah. But I don't think you'll ever see that. I would love to see him take over Tony Gungy's spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I hate that guy. And I think it's justified. He's a homophobic piece of shit who probably killed his own son, but allegedly. All right. So so let's go over to who we will be rooting for if this is the scenario. If it is the Chiefs versus the Lions. I'll be rooting for the Chiefs.
Okay.
If it is the Chiefs versus the 49ers. I'll be rooting for the Chiefs. If it is the Ravens against the Lions.
Ooh, that's tough. Ravens.
Guess who I'm saying?
Ravens?
Lions.
Okay. Yeah. I'm cool either way with that one. I genuinely am cool either way with that one.
Yeah, it's still, though it's a rivalry, it's still the NFC North.
Yeah.
And theirs is a great story this year.
Yeah, it really is. No,
it really is. So
yeah, it is a wonderful story. And like I said, in that situation, I'm cool either way. The only reason I pick Lions is because Lamar Jackson was my fantasy quarterback this year for most of the season in my fantasy league, and I won that motherfucker. So I'm gonna appreciate it, bro. So
I don't do fantasy anymore because you end up rooting for situations that in real life make you so distaste. At one point on the trade, I got Brian Urlacher. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine what that week was like for me until I got
how many hours of therapy did that get you?
So bad. All right, and then lastly, the Ravens versus the 49ers.
49ers.
Ravens. Yep. We don't agree on anything.
Nope. So
wow, that's pretty fantastic.
I want to know. So we actually talked about this a little bit offline, but we didn't get too far into it. I have reasons for why, right? And I know you do as well. What are your reasons based off of?
The Chiefs have always been one of my backup teams.
Okay.
Along with the Steelers and the Giants. So those are teams that I can root for even during the regular season, given the right circumstances. So those have always been my 3 backup teams. So that's a good reason why the Chiefs are there.
Okay.
In terms of the Lions, like I said, it's a great story. I think team member per team member, I think the Ravens are actually the best team that's in the postseason. I don't think they're going to necessarily be triumphant even this week, but I do think the Ravens, player for player, are the best team out there. That doesn't mean they're going to win.
Yeah.
With the 49ers, they've just taken the Packers out too many times in the playoffs. I got a chip on my shoulder, and I think it's justified.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. So I take a different approach to playoffs, right? Season's different. My approach to playoffs, number one, I'm always going to root for the whoever the NFC team is, right? If the NFC wins, that means my conference is better than the other conference, right? So if an NFC team wins, all of the NFC teams get some sense of bragging right? Like AFC lost, right? I'm always going to root for a team that, quite frankly, if it's the team that put the Cowboys out of the playoffs, I then want that team to win, because it's better to get knocked out by the team that won the championship by the team that didn't make it. We got knocked out. So, and here's some other reasons. Like 49ers beat the ever-loving dog crap out of the Cowboys this year, right? I would love to be able to say, yes, they beat the crap out of us, but they were also the world champions, as opposed to, yeah, they beat the crap out of us, but also they didn't win. Like they were subpar, right? Like we lost to a lesser team. I'd love to be able to say that. Green Bay put Packers out, or put the Cowboys out. I would like to be able to say, yes, Green Bay put us out, but they're the only team that actually gave the 49ers a run for their money, right? That's how good they were. It took the second best team to knock us out, right? There's some sense, like you want to be able to make the best argument that your team has like a higher rank than maybe what they showed. So I'm always going to do that. And I was that way in high school. Like when I played football, I really wanted the team that put us out of the running to win. I was like, I'd love to be able to say, hey, yeah, we got knocked out, but we got knocked out by the same people that knocked everybody else out. So that's the way I approach it. So, I mean, like, and even to the point, I've cheered for Philly. Like I wanted Philly to beat Kansas City in 2023. I want the NFC team to win. A rising tide lifts all ships, and that's the way I look at it. Except for Washington. Fuck those guys.
So Washington is the exception to your
libertarian
paradise.
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
I just want the prettiest people to win.
My husband.
I think I may have done a slip up because I've had a friend for 30 years, Laura Gungy. I may have said Tony Gungy instead of Tony Dungy. I'm sorry if that happened. The case, I do know better. But he gets me riled up. So
my husband's in the other room letting me know that he wants me to announce that he just wants Taylor Swift's team to win. That's that's the extent that he's Team Tay-Tay.
Okay.
Just a quick interjection here. David Hazan has joined us. Hello, David.
Hello.
Hey, boys. He says.
Sorry for the football talk. This happens in
good old American football.
Well, we can broach over into geek culture, though. We got some, kind of bridge that gap. We both got some stuff to talk about, and it relates into Christmas, right?
Yeah. But before we do, I just want to say something about things going forward, if you don't mind. In our off season, we had a phone call, and I'm going to be very honest with listeners because I know there's some people who have been listening to us. We're coming on 13 years in April. I came very close to considering ending this podcast. And I don't mean this to sound as doom and gloom and as heavy as it might come out, but I'm going through a period right now where I'm really not that ingrained in a lot of comic book culture and comic book reading specifically. I'm finding it a chore. I've been here before. It doesn't last long, but when I was here before, I didn't have a podcast that I led. So, and I didn't have responsibility to 2 or 3 really cool other guys. So going forward, I'm still going to be talking about comic books. I'm probably going to have at least one new comic to talk about each time, and I'm just waiting for this stuff to kick in. But I'm going through a thing right now where I just am not where I've been previously with comics. I'm just not there right now. I mean, other things are taking up my time. If I do have free time, I'm opting to do other things, and I don't exactly know why. It's not a case of substandard material being out there. That certainly isn't the case. But if you see me on the show, you can think of a lot of #1 issues that I've raved about. Whether it was Alan Scott Green Lantern or the Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong very recently. Tons of #1s. Danger Street. And I drop off really quickly on these books. I have them, but I'm not reading them. And I have to shake this off. And I'm confident I will shake this off. But for the next however long it takes, I don't want to say months or weeks, but it's going to be a little while, I'm sure. You may see me on here talking about stuff other than comics that I'm really into because A, I love talking to these guys. B, this is a show that's lasted for, as I said, in April, it's going to be 13 years. And I don't want to blow 13 years of content and 13 years of goodwill out the door just because I'm in a mood. Bear with me, but and you may even enjoy it. I mean, I hope you don't mind that we're talking about what we did while we were gone, or what Caleb and I getting into football a little bit, because we're not just comic book people. But and it's still there's not gonna be any name change. That's stupid. But for me, some of my content may not be as comic specific, but I will be talking about stuff I'm really into, and I guess that's where the show originally generated from, was from this interest. And I'm just asking people, if you've been a regular listener and you hear some talk coming from me that's about stuff other than comics, just bear with me, and maybe you'll really dig what I'm talking about then too. So there you go.
Well, and there's still, like you said, still lots of comic shop talk on the show. We always talk about TV shows, music, right? We're very well-rounded people when it comes to popular culture. So super excited about that. I'm super excited to see you get giddy about something. And also, look, if Comic-Con didn't have to change their name and they don't have any comics, why should Comic Book Bears?
There you go, right there.
Good point.
I guess because MovieCon was taken, movie, TV, and other stuff con.
PopCon.
Nothing kind of trips off the tongue though, like Comic-Con.
It rings.
Yeah,
it's just a good name.
It just has that ring to it. So, all right. Well, Caleb, you introduced the story when we've been away. We gave each other some gifts, and I guess we can show them to people here.
We got some prezzies. I got one of them, and this is the only non-comic book bear present I got. I showed it when we came on. My buddy, Philip, aka Flippa got me a Magneto helmet. So shout out to him. Thank you. I love it. It's usually on my bookshelf in a prime spot. But Bill and Steve teamed up, and they sent me a box of goodies. Steve, as you notice in the background of Steve's whatever window, Steve has a really cool Wonder Woman poster up, right? New Tom King thing. Steve's comic shop gets him a lot of posters. He sent me a bunch of them. Don't really have time to flip through all of them, but it's some good stuff. I'll kind of showcase them over the next couple shows that we do. I'll try to pull a Steve and keep it in the background. But Steve also sent me a copy of Copra Volume 1 that I'm super excited about. Yeah. Michelle Fife is just glorious in all kinds of ways.
Great stuff.
He also sent me Hamish Steele's Dead India.
That's
awesome, right? From No Brow. So super excited about that. Some action figure action. Bill made sure that I got Mr. Submariner himself, the new Namor. I actually did not have this. I'm super excited about it. And you can't see
the other fella.
Huh?
It's the other fella who did that.
I thought you got me this.
No. Yeah, Bill. No, you got this.
I got this.
It's just
Yeah.
yes, you did. And in fact, it's been
that's right.
in my house.
Never said that. Oh my god, that's
Heroes
right. I
Con.
said, yeah, I'm getting this for Caleb. That's right. I totally forgot.
And he's got
And I
the
was
awesome.
like, I need to send this.
He's got like the awesome '80s ponytail. Which
Yeah.
did that work for anybody?
Oh my
Really?
god, senility, so much fun. Okay,
I love it, and it's got the turtle shell, like the shield too. So I'm super excited. And then also, I got a little Cosmo dog. Look at how cute. Look at him. He's a good boy. And then I got some little. There were lots of little stuff dispersed in there, but this I love. If it's glaring, but it's a button. So it's from Gengora Tagame's my brother's husband. We are family. Love this. This is going on my con bag, and then a little mini comic among some other things that I snagged and got too. So this is from at Cactus Killer, his somebody named Chris, and it's called Homebody, little mini comic. So lots of cool swag. And there may be some stuff back there on the shelf I did not grab, but I adored this box of stuff. And also look how cute little Cosmo is. Look at him. His little tail wags. If you move him on the ground,
just making
it wags.
sure you did get my other package though, right?
Which other package?
Action Comics 1000.
I have not gotten that in.
Uh-oh. All right. What? That's bad. That's really bad.
Did the mailman steal my shit?
Maybe because your exclusive Wanda cover was in there too.
Oh.
No, you had to have gotten it. You had to have gotten it because you got the button.
I do have it. Y'all go ahead. I'll find it.
Okay, good. Oh, thank God. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna grab some stuff too, but I did want to say we have been joined by our illustrious other brother Brian Pitter down in Japan. I am so excited that you're having a cool trip out there. Konbanwa from Japan, says Brian. Yeah, and again, we're going to be talking about some stuff that I got from Brian too. Oh, well, you know what? Caleb's back.
I'm a space cadet. I'm so sorry. Okay. Bill also sent me
I was really worried because that Wanda thing is. I can't get another one of those.
Oh yeah, no, dude. I had this set up on my shelf. I'd set in something on top of it. So, Action Comics 1000 hardcover, still in the Saran wrap, for lack of a better word. So super love that. But the just the thing that blew my mind, and I absolutely adore it. Variant cover of the Scarlet Witch. It's the horror variant cover. This is gorgeous. It is I can't do it justice on here without with the glare and stuff like that, but it is spectacular.
You scared me to death.
I love this to no end. I knew I had it nearby, but you said it's like
I should have known because if you had the husband button, you would have got it. So
yeah. But I love this. Thank you. Sorry, I just spaced.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I wanted to say too. So when Brian's joined us, he did send some really cool stickers and pins that are absolutely gorgeous. And then also, drag is not a crime. Thank you very much, Brian. As well as something which I didn't bring up with me. But there's this really cool sort of, I guess it's a Korean company that puts it out, little keychains of different DC characters sort of in chibi quality. And they also come with jelly beans, just so you know. But I got a Joker, and it is the coolest looking Joker ever. And it's really shiny and glittery, and it's on my keychain right now. I love it.
Okay. So thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And then also from Bill, I got a bunch of stuff. You might recognize the DC Bombshells, which I did not have. This I had gotten a couple floppies, but I never got the whole series. There's just so much, and I'm so excited to be able to go back and read it because, trust me, I will have some difficulty digging out those comics from my massive number of boxes. And then also a couple other variant covers here that are the Godzilla covers. One for Batman number 138, and then a King Kong for Shazam #4, and so it's the Godzilla versus Kong put them together, and it looks really freaking cool. So thank you so much. And then also, I did get also a button as well, the Gengoro Tagame's My Brother's Husband, and then from Caleb, I got a couple wonderful books. Queer as All Get Out, which is a great book, love it. And then also just a little sort of side story of Nick and Charlie from Heartstopper. So
Nice.
I'm excited about this one.
It's adorable.
So, yes,
Bill,
yes.
before you go, one last thing that I got, and it was in the Action Comics thing. I laughed so hard at this. Bill sent me an "I voted" sticker. It was in there with it. I don't know if that was on purpose or if it just kind of fell in there. I love it. Like it cracked me up. I just the most. It's like I voted.
I voted.
All right. Well, I'll jump on what you said with Brian, since I did bring mine. This is the packaging for the keychains. And I did also eat the jelly beans. I hit the mother load with that because my keychain was Superman. So happy.
You got soups.
That's the same one I got.
You got soups.
Yeah, and you get his other assorted stickers and stuff. You get the Drag Is Not a Crime. And then I got this I wonder if you guys got stuff like this. It's like it's by Stephen McDermott, and it's like Captain America's ass. I don't know if you can see that.
No, that's awesome.
And then from Caleb, I got this beautiful Taschen set, the Walt Disney Film Archives. It's a 3-book set. Really nice. Goes through the animated movies from 1921 to 1967. So everything that's pre-me. And very nice. If people are unfamiliar with Taschen books, I mean, they really are, probably the preeminent, high-end book publisher. And then this was also supplemented, and I just love seeing it. It did not make our tree this year, but it will next year. And got Bam, the Batmobile Bat Wheels as an ornament. So there's also I also got a Funko Batman ornament. So he got good new company there next year. Steve sent me a box of stuff. There's always like these, these tchotchkes, like the Flurkin from the McDonald's. Two great things I got from Steve in that box of books. One was the unofficial DC Comics Hostess Snack Ads compilation, which comes out from Triton Studios. It's the unofficial collection of those wonderful ads that promoted, like Twinkies and Hostess fruit pies that appeared in the comics. And apart from it's not bannered here, but you also get the ones that were with the Looney Tunes characters.
Oh, nice.
That mostly ran in the Gold Key comics. So it's really cool. I got a hardbound collection of the Thrilling Adventure Hour graphic novel based on that podcast. Very happy about that, Steve. Thank you. And then from both of the gentlemen, I got a whole slew of comics here. Some freebies, some other stuff. This is from Caleb. I got the stuff I couldn't find locally, the Golden Age compilation, and I just love how they do these sketch covers now for some of the reissues that they have. This is for Batman #1, the Justice Society Gold Edition. I guess this is a JR cover of DK3, book 1, and more stuff from Caleb that he picked up for me on Batman Day. Thank you for those guys. And also just to, I didn't get many posters from Steve, but I just want to show you that our boy does have a sense of humor, because he did send me a Planet of the Apes poster.
And now it is in your house and not in mine.
Weren't you the one that said you hate post-apocalyptic science fiction properties? Why do you have that poster?
Featuring
But thank you
AIDS.
guys, and I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday season, and also hope you had a good New Year's. I had a very good New Year's.
I did.
A really good time.
I don't think I made it to midnight, but I had a good one.
I was like, I'm usually like in bed by like 4 or so on New Year's Eve. I think it was like 6 this year. It went a little beyond that.
4 p.m. 4 p.m. Is that?
No, not that.
The other one?
A.m. My God.
But it's also, you know, among my friends, you know, that's a big thing. Sharon's New Year's Eve party, so. And it's close by. It's the next town over, essentially. So, you know, sometimes that scares you with travel on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, we're caught up on our thing. It's like 37 minutes in. Lordy, we can talk about ourselves. So let's turn this around and let's talk about some comic books. I'm going to start with Caleb because he has a DC book that I'm not caught up on, but I do have every issue but one and will get caught up on. So why don't you talk about that first book?
Yeah, so the book in its entirety that I got to catch up on read is issues 1 through 10 of Superman Lost. This is, I loved this book. I really, really did. It was fantastic. This is kind of a closed universe thing. It doesn't play into the overall universe, but it could, right? There's nothing about it that really sets it up differently. But the reason I picked this up, number one, is because the creative team just grabbed my eye. This is he's just going by Priest in this, but it's Christopher Priest. And you know, if you didn't know that, you would tell that by the format because it's very much his calling card. But not only is it Christopher Priest, it's also Carlo Pagulian. And that man has, you know, a longtime Hulk fan. He means a lot to me. So I was like, okay, Dream Team, I've got to pick this up and just see what they're doing in this. I read the first issue, and Bill, I think I was talking to you about this when I said that in one issue, Christopher Priest told a better Justice League story than he did in his entire Justice League run. And that is,
I would agree with that. Yeah,
it was phenomenal. It is a great single issue Justice League story, but it really plays into, you know, the overall plot. But he gets everybody. And by the way, Carlo Pagulian's Wonder Woman is just outstanding. She is gorgeous, fearsome, strong. I love seeing her. This was inked. I've never seen this inker on Carlo's work before, but Jason Paz, and I could be, and maybe I just didn't catch on to it. One of the better inkers I've seen on Carlo's work. And then Jeremy Cox did the colors with Willie Schubert on letters. So this book, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and talk about 10 issues worth of stuff. We're not going to be here till 4 a.m. But the long and short of it is, it's an average day, right? Lois is working on a story. She's trying to crack it. There's somebody's weird in local politics that she's really digging into. She knows there's something there. You know, Clark is letting her do her thing, right? Like he knows that she needs to do her work, and he's just like, well, you know, we can go to bed. And they're like, well, you know, we could go to bed or we can go to bed. And they're like, well, you know, if we do the one, as soon as it gets good, like my phone's going to ring or your phone's going to ring and we're going to have problems. And she's like, yeah, well, let me just finish this up. Lo and behold, it happens, right? Like Superman's beeper goes off and there's trouble in the world. He's got to go be Superman. And he flies off. Well, you know, Lois is used to this. This is standard fare for her. She's used to her husband running off into the night or the day or the whenever to be Superman because he's Superman. And so she doesn't think anything of it. She's just going to keep working on her story. She's going to figure things out. And a few hours later, you know, time passes. Clark comes back in. Except Clark is stoic. Like he's not talking. He's just got this dead blank stare. And she's just like, what's up? What happened? He was just like, you know, you're you. And she's like, well, yeah, like you've only been gone for a few hours. And he's like, no, Lois, I've been gone for 20 years. And about that time, the doorbell rings and it's Bruce. And Bruce walks in and is like, Lois, I'm sorry. And Bruce knows that something's going on. And this is about the point Lois needs explanations, right? Something has happened here. What happened, right? the Justice League gets called out, and they're going out into the equivalent of the South China Sea. It's supposed to be international waters, but it's really not. Apparently, a submarine is sunk, nuclear missiles, right? Everything's bad. They got to go figure this out and do Justice League thing. Except when they get down there, and also, by the way, Christopher Priest writes amazing Aquaman. Like, I loved his Aquaman. This was a fun Aquaman. I'd read that story. They get down to the ocean floor and they're getting ready to do all the things they need to do. And they realize, well, this isn't a submarine. This isn't a Chinese sub. Like, this is like, what's going on here? It's an alien spacecraft. And inside this alien spacecraft, there is a singularity bomb that's about to go off. They don't know what, at this point in time, we don't know who these folks are, what happened. But basically, a black hole is about to open up and swallow existence as we know it, right? The only thing that can hold it together is Superman doing some really cool Superman stuff, right? Being selfless, being extremely strong, being able to like change the frequency that he operates at, and the Justice League all support this. And the whole idea is that, hey, we're going to tie Diana's lasso of truth around him, shove him off in there. He's going to fix this, and we're going to get him out right before anything happens, right? Doesn't work out like that. Shoots Clark off into space and time. And that's kind of what happens. And he has to go on these adventures. And through the books, he goes to different planets, but it's so far away from the universe that even the Justice League is not the Justice League there, right? Like they're not the Justice League. The Green Lantern Corps is nowhere to be found. They can't tap into this. They're there, right? There's elements of it there, but it's not the Green Lantern Corps that we know, right? Clark is bound and determined to get home to his family. But in the meantime, he also can't turn a blind eye to some really terrible situations on some of these planets, these unexplored, unmarked planets. He's Superman, right? His empathy and his compassion and everything that makes him him. It doesn't just exist in the Milky Way, right? It's not just in our universe. So he has to be Superman, and that comes at some pretty great sacrifices. Again, I don't want to spoil anything because I know Bill hasn't completely read it. Other folks might as well. I don't like time travel stories. This is an amazing time travel story. They do a really good job with it. They do a really good job understanding how space and time works and breaking it down and delivering it in a sense that a comic book can, right? I can understand this. I'm not a physicist. I get this. I get how it's supposed to work. It really plays into the selflessness of who Kal-El is. And what he will do to keep his word. You get to see the lengths that he will go to lift people up. And you get to see the spirit that he is infectious, right? Like his spirit is infectious among people. He forms a team. He has some people that he cooperates with. He's betrayed. There's lots of stuff happening here, but ultimately speaking, in a way, he gets home, but not without a whole lot of self-sacrifice. And so I'll leave it at that. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful book, brilliantly drawn. The action sequences are wonderful. And there were moments in this where you just get a little misty-eyed. Like this is the Superman that I love, right? This is wonderfully done. So if you have not read this, again, it's a 10-issue miniseries. All of the issues are out right now. I'm sure the trade is coming out. I think you can probably read it on the DC apps or whatever. Go check this out. This is the best Carlo Pagulian has looked in years. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, but it's the best he's looked in years. And he's always looked good, but this is stunning, stunning work. So already kind of in the running for, like, I've got a little check mark by it. This may be on my, like, best books of the year next year for 2024, which I count because, yes, only one issue came out in 24, but it finished in 2024. So I'm going to count it. So
trade's coming out.
Yeah, I love it. I love this book. I love Tom Taylor's work on Superman. Don't get me wrong. This is one of the better Superman stories I've read in the last 4 or 5 years.
Steve, can you put the last graphic you had back up there? And this was something that you touched on. And when I talked about issue 1 when it first came out and was just blown away by it. So, I mean, this cover tells you everything you need to know. And this is one of the frustrations of being a bit of a skinflint and always getting like the main cover and not the variant. But this is just, I mean, it tells you everything you need to know. I mean, he's in a safe space. The Kents are literally looking over him.
Yeah.
But you can tell this is a guy who's been through some shit. and I just think this is just a stunning cover. I have up to issues 9. 10 will be in my next box. I did peek through some stuff, and I saw like the white costume and some other stuff. I did see an issue 9 because I didn't want to read it. I just wanted to finger through it. Let's say flip through it, finger through it sounds.
I was gonna let it go. We're just gonna let it go.
Sorry about that. But I did see that Dan Jurgens did some of the pages on issue 9. Were there other interludes where there were other artists that came in through those?
There were. I think there were a few. I know that in one of the story, Louis Prado did some work on it. Get Dan Breeding's inking Jurgens at one point. I want to say that Lee Weeks did a little bit. He's in there as well with that crew. He brought the person who colors for him, Betty Brettweiser, in with him too, which I'm always kind of like on, but that's just me. But yeah, you get some of these interludes, and Bill, I'm glad you brought this up, because at its heart, like you're seeing multiple parts of, you're seeing where he went and where he is now. Ultimately, this is a PTSD story, and typically, if you look at me and say, "Hey, who's writing the best PTSD stories right now?" I'd probably say Tom King. Tom King writes a lot of this internalized, just let's deal with mental health issues that stem from trauma. Right? He's really good at that. Most of this story, like when he's living with Lois for like a month and trying to get back to reality and just can't break it, and there's something there, and a lot of that stems from the fact that he's got unfinished business, and Lois knows it, and she wants her husband back, but she knows that she can't get that back truly until he goes and figures things out. Cool. The white suit is amazing. Like that is a great conceit.
I have also heard that apart from the Superman elements in the story, I've also heard that Priest nails Lois and Lex Luthor.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
His Lex is just nasty, right? Like, but in almost it's not an anti-hero way, but like Lex, and if anybody gets to kill Clark, it's Lex, and no one else gets to do that. That's basically it in a nutshell, right? It's good. Lois she's just staunch. She's unwaverable, which is exactly what you want from her. And they put Clark in a great position, which we've seen other writers do. Like, he's not near a yellow sun, which is where that kind of white suit comes in. And he's trying to travel through space. Also, there's if you're a fan of Lobo, I will say that there's one element of this book. There's one double page spread that will just make you smile, and Lobo's not in it, but you'll know what it is when you see it.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna stick with the House of L here, sort of.
Well,
hey Edwin, how you doing?
Really quick. Yeah, Edwin De La Cruz joined us. I love the Superman story, Bill. So yeah, I think we've got several fans.
I will get to it. I swear, believe me, if I'm going to get to these boxes that I have here, Superman's going to be part of it. Don't worry about that. Hey John, how you doing?
John Westhoff joined us, throwing up some horns, and then finally
Doom fame. Hello, James.
Doom. And James Figueredo, good evening, you handsome gents. Good
favorite Brazilians. Very happy to have them all with us tonight.
So
I'm going to talk about another book within the Superman family, sort of. And this is Kneel Before Zod #1. This is the first ever extended solo story involving General Zod. You have to think, because of the prominence in the Donner films, apart from Luthor, he's probably the best known Superman villain. I don't think in the popular conscious that Brainiac has a.
I was going to say Brainiac would be the third one on that list, but maybe Starro, but
yeah, maybe, I don't know, but with General Zod, if you've been following where things stand in DC Comics, there's a sort of detente that's operating right now between him and Superman, and Zod as participating in the what is that, League of Planets? I forget. United Planets. Is it United Planets?
I think it's the United Planets. Yeah.
something like that. Whatever the Legion had, it's been updated, it's been pushed up in time to the current DC universe, and he is participating with them to bring order into the galaxy. He has a planet of his own now. He's conquered a planet. He's named it New Kandor. He's in possession of Kandor from the bottled city that Brainiac had created, and eventually his plan is to populate this new world with the revived Kandorians that are in the bottle, and it's effectively going to be a new Krypton. But he's Zod. He's not a leader of men in a political sense. He's a leader of men in a war sense. So he's in some territory that is fairly unfamiliar to him, and it's taxing his mind. We actually start with a argument between him and Jor-El. We all know Jor-El is long dead, but in his head, he's alive. So you have to question, where exactly is Zod at this point, and is he the best decision maker? So there's a lot of things that are going on in this planet where they're doing bioengineering. There's robotics. He is intent on reviving some form of Krypton on this planet that is New Kandor. He's also, as we said, a warrior, and with warrior comes conquest. He's building a weapon on this planet, and it probably will be the functional equivalent of a Warworld or a Death Star. It's going to be a very powerful weapon. Now, if you know what's going on with Zod, there's a Zod family. He is married Ursa, and he has a son. Drew, is it Drew Zod? Yeah, Drew Zod. No, he's Drew Zod, Lars Zod. Sorry about that. And the son is about as appealing as Damien is. So he's suspect. He's conniving. He wants to get ahead. He is very dedicated to his father in his own way, but they're not seeing eye to eye. And Lor-Zod discovers this weapon and realizes that his father has been sort of deceiving him, calls him on it, and Zod puts him in his place in seconds and eventually bans his own son from the planet, sends him off into the universe. There's no place for him here. He doesn't work into my plans. When you talked about Caleb, when you talked about like a well-written Luthor, and how it's effectively a character that there's so much color to him, to just apply villain to the character doesn't do the character justice. And the interpretation of Zod here is very much along those lines. Now, again, we said, he's participating with the United Planets. So there's, notoriety that there is this new planet, and who comes to try to conquer them but the Coons. And Zod wipes out a battalion of Coons himself. And it's a great action sequence. Perfect action sequence that leads into what effectively is the first cliffhanger at the end of the first issue. The artist on this, not the artist on this cover, but the artist is someone, Dan McDade, who I haven't seen. I haven't seen his work for some time, though he has been very active, just not on properties that I regularly read, like especially the books coming out from Titan of Doctor Who. And it just like scares me that this was already like 14, 15 years ago at this point. He was the artist on a series, Jersey Gods, if you remember that came out of Image, that effectively was, okay, what if Orion of the New Gods fell in love with this chick from New Jersey? That basically was the series, and it was great. And his art style worked beautifully for that. Bordering on cartoony, but in that way that you still buy it as very superhero action. I think Ed McGuinness is like a fairly good comparison.
Okay.
And it works better than I thought it would when I saw that his name was attached to it, because McDade's work, tends to be, very bright colors. There's like a vibrancy to it. So when you're telling a story of somebody who's steeped in War and Conquest. I didn't know how well that would adapt, but he's perfect on this. The writer is Joe Casey. Back in the early 2000s, Joe Casey wrote a ton of great Superman stories. And that certainly is a welcome addition to that canon. I also wanted to just mention that if you're a regular reader of Action Comics, in issue 1060, there is a short prologue with the same team, which basically sets us up. You don't necessarily need to read this to get whatever you're going to get out of Neil Before Zod #1, but it's a nice little supplement. So that's something I recommend. I believe this is set for 5 issues unless it sells better than they expect. Neil Before Zod #1 from DC, again by Joe Casey and Dan McDay.
Yep, and I think you've convinced Edwin to pick this one up as well.
Yeah, Edwin, I think you really, I think you really
have
like
to read this.
Yeah. And I love stories from the extended Superman universe. When they're not done well, it's a slog. But when they are done well, it's up there in terms of enjoyable comic book reading experiences.
I'm really surprised that there hasn't been sort of like a mini series or a book starring Zod, like all this stuff. Because I mean, this,
and I also think
70s
where he is right now, he's already had conflict with the Green Lantern Corps. Where he is now, that opens him up to, and Lobo's not in it. That opens him up to the other spaceborne kind of, like he could be facing Adam Strange or the Omega Men or the New Gods. There's a lot of different possibilities in terms of him being effectively a space character now. And a lot of ways that you can interpret this character, whether it be from a societal or political, because some of his arguments can be supported. If you were from a dead culture, you'd want to see it revived. And the methods may be something totally alien and distasteful to you, but the argument is one that can be made and one that can be understood and one that can be sympathized and God forbid empathized. And there's a lot of texture there that you can play with this character, and plus he's hot too.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap between him and characters. I mean, characters like Magneto, right? Even Namor to an extent. There's a lot of overlap with there as far as they're doing the wrong thing, but the there's a good reason behind it. You can't. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of shared space in that Venn diagram.
Yeah. So for the whole genocide thing.
Well, right, but I mean, if you could resurrect, like Bill said, though, if you can resurrect your culture and your family, what wouldn't you do to get your family back?
Yeah,
right.
And that's the thing. I think I wouldn't necessarily think Superman is a Nazi. Think of Superman as General Patton.
Right.
In some ways, that's just as scary, if not scarier. So.
Well, and with Zod as well, I think probably where he's been limited up to this point is that he's, Earth is the prize. And I think Earth is always the prize. I mean, that's just sort of the conceit of the whole DC universe, that there's something about Earth, an Earth prime. But, putting him out in the universe, there's plenty of planets out there for him to revive his culture on. Some that might be better suited than, one that already has 7 billion people on it with a whole bunch of their own problems. He could start from scratch, and that, having get that opportunity to go, Sinestro on a planet, I guess would be, is a good.
There was one thing I never really thought about that they address in that brief beginning here, where it's this weird conversation with Dream Jor-El and him, this weird argument, was that Krypton cast him out. Yeah. They squashed his insurrection. It was Krypton that did it. It wasn't just Jor-El. It was the society.
Yeah.
So that adds another layer of complication you know, hey, they turned your back on you. Why are you like this? So, like you said, there's no straight line with this character. It's a bunch of waves.
Right.
And
It's funny that you bring that up, because there, like in Superman Lost, there's a kind of a thread of that, and some of the places that he goes, there's almost this libertarian aspect where the people are going to vote the way they vote no matter what, and we respect that, right? And we're going to, even if it's terrible, right? And so there's kind of that similar byline in that thread that I find interesting, as far as what that means to the Superman universe and to all the characters that spin out of it, and what those seeds, where those roots dig into those characters. So that is a very interesting thing.
Yep. Okay. On to Steve. Steve, I understand you have 2 books you want to talk about, and you're going to be talking about them at the same time?
Yes, because they do fit very well together.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, they kind of fit along the lines of the archetypes that we just talked about with Superman and with General Zod, because you have 2 very prominent figures, 2 very popular, prominent characters from Hasbro's line that have been given their own miniseries. Again, they do really well. I'm sure they'll be extended or something, or create, additional volumes. But that is Cobra Commander and Duke. So G.I. Joe and, Cobra Commander for Cobra. So Duke was released first. This is all interconnected with the new Energon universe.
I'm very sorry. I just got shocked because I could have sworn Joshua Williamson was a DC exclusive.
Nope.
Guess not. Okay.
Well, is it one of those things where somebody is a DC or Marvel exclusive, but they can work for indies? Because that happens a lot.
It could be.
I mean, they kind of I think after they shelled too much money out for Bendis, I think I think that the big 2 both are gun shy about that.
Yeah.
I do know Hickman is an exclusive apart from indie to Marvel. But it's not nearly as prominent as you once saw it.
Right.
Not nearly. Yeah. I mean, even Dan Slott, who's Marvel to the core, is working on some properties outside.
Yeah.
That.
And I bet that's something that's just baked into their contracts. I mean, it's like, we'll offer you an exclusive
at the same time,
mostly so that you're not.
Yeah. Another huge thing was, a big appeal to that exclusivity was health insurance, and now that there are exchanges, depending on what state you live in, the quality that you'll see that's changed a lot of. I mean, not just comics naturally, but just freelance work, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this case, I mean, it's still independent. I mean, it's Image, but it's Skybound, and not one of the big 2. So I think
Hasbro.
It's Hasbro, but it's Hasbro's licensed, and But anyway,
let's get over that. Let's just talk about. I'm sorry for the.
Let's just talk about it.
I'm sorry for I was just very surprised at the name that was on there. So.
No worries. And actually, it's Joshua Williamson who's writing both of these minis. The artist on Duke is Tom Riley, and for Cobra Commander, it's Andrea Milana. And they have very, very different styles. For one, I think what's interesting with Duke is that it's very it's very war comic, very heavy inks. You're looking at a lot of like explosions, a lot of like monochromatic panels that are one color or just like a couple colors and lots of blacks, lots of shadows. Whereas in Cobra Commander, there's a lot of shockingly bright colors, really interesting palettes that are being worked with there. So in how it's being presented is very interesting because they're very different. But obviously this takes place in the Energon universe, and it takes place, both of these are taking place somewhere around the arrival of the Transformers on Earth. So Duke picks up right after basically Starscream kind of goes on his rampage in issue 2 or 3 of the Transformers. And there's a couple fighter jets that are scrambled when he shows up, and one of those jets is smashed, and it happens to be with Duke. one of Duke's squad mates, who does not fare very well with Starscream, who grabs him and makes a squishy noise as he destroys him. But Duke, of course, traumatized by this, decides that he is done with the military, and on top of that, the military is more or less done with him because they have classified the existence of Transformers. They don't want him talking about it, and he won't let it go. So out he goes. He does find, however, a group of people who believe him. Mostly a bunch of kind of fringe theorists and whatnot, but one scientist in particular, brings him in and says, "Hey, I was working on this really important project, and somehow, like, all my work was stripped away from me. I had nothing except for this, and it looks like, we're working on a new weapons platform. There's something that's coming up, some kind of technology that we really, don't really like because it could be extremely dangerous for all of us." And Duke, of course, wants to figure out more information, wants to know more. So he goes in, he infiltrates this Mars corporation, which of course is run by Destro, and is let go. But of course, with a warning, everybody seems to know who he is. And there could be some very kind of nefarious things going on with the American military as well, that we're not really too sure about. But I mean, here we've got some reveals. We've got some, there's a direct connection to the Transformers, not just the technology, but also the idea of Energon, because Earth has Energon. So this is all kind of leading to potentially where Duke is going to become involved in what becomes G.I. Joe. Cobra Commander, on the other hand, is a very different feel, because this one focuses on Cobra La, which, of course, if anybody is a fan of the original cartoons or the original movie for G.I. Joe back, the animated movie back in the 80s, Cobra La is this mythical sort of Shangri-La kind of land that's much more developed, that the people kind of are alien-ish, and it's a hidden society somewhere within the bowels of the earth. Well, Cobra Commander has been experimenting. He is a scientist, and he's been experimenting on some strange new technology that is even far beyond what Cobra La has developed over time. And Cobra La, interestingly enough, is being presented as a peaceful society, one that does not abide by the development of weapons. But Cobra Commander's got he's got ambitions, and the Emperor, of course, is kind of happy to have him explore that, and so sends him out into the world, into normal above ground Earth society to collect more technology, to gather allies, and to, again, for the advancement of Cobra La. Interestingly enough, we also have the reveal of a missing Transformer, an extremely important Transformer that has been, alluded to in the main title. Turns out that Cobra Commander has captured somehow Megatron and has been basically milking Megatron. Maybe milking's not the right word. Using him to build this new technology and to sort of take energon particles and use that for his technological developments and research. So it's really interesting how Hasbro has sort of given this over to Skybound to really integrate these properties. And they're doing it in a great way. Like Josh Williamson here, with these two very different characters, really understands how to present a truly heroic person and a truly despicable person that both have the best interests of their societies in mind. Cobra Commander, glory to Cobra La. We're going to really, we're going to be number one. There's no way that we'll ever be beaten if we can figure out a way to harness all this energon and harness the technology from these Transformer creatures. And then Duke as well, kind of from the other side. There's, these are too dangerous. This is too much, too destructive. The potential is too problematic. We can't have people with this amount of power. And obviously they're going to meet, in very explosive ways. But this sort of building into, understanding the histories, their origins in this new universe, this new connected universe that Skybound is putting out. I think Josh Williamson does a really great job here. Beautiful books, really, really interesting, very different art styles, but are kind of married thematically as well as the same writer. So you get that kind of through line. I really like this, and I'm excited to see where they take it, and how this is going to all, connect and marry up with the main Transformers title. So I don't know if you guys have been, following too much of the Energon universe stuff. But...
Just Void Rivals #1. I was thinking of getting some trades.
Void Rivals is great. I love Void Rivals because other than that first issue reveal, and a couple other issues, obviously a couple other characters that have been showing up here and there. It's a very unique, it's very much its own story.
Yeah,
and
because I have to say, like, I was really impressed on the outset when IDW had the Revolution arc, which was probably the best marriage of the different Hasbro properties to that point. Kind of petered out fairly quickly, but I do like the notion of these characters interacting with each other and it being their own universe. And I just might have to go the trade route because it just
there's a lot, and I have not read the new G.I. Joe series. I think it started with sort of like the legacy numbering 301. 302 comes out this month. I haven't picked those up yet because I'm really more interested in sort of like the other titles around it. And this will feed in, obviously, Cobra Commander and Duke are going to feed into the G.I. Joe title, but I kind of want to wait. I want to read their stories first. I want to read the Transformers story first before going back. That one I'm probably going to read in trades.
Well, you've also, at this point, for both of them, you have almost 40 years for each to mine their history and adapt it in new ways. So
and these are much canon makes sense.
And also, these are much bigger name creators than were at IDW. No disparity. No, I'm not meaning to disparage anybody that worked on those, but this is Skybound. This is these are marked.
And with that comes artists like Daniel Warren Johnson and stuff that are playing with these things. Like you're getting top tier artists right now. I mean, and Tom Riley's not to that point, but Tom Riley's an amazing artist. Like he really is. I love seeing him on these type of books, and he has that very kind of toyetic style that works just really well.
Yeah. I mean, like the last issue of Transformers. I mean, it's just, DWJ on this book, so exciting. I just have been really impressed with the stories that they've been telling. Void Rivals is great. It's really cool sci-fi, sort of Enemy Mine meets, maybe meets the Matrix a little bit. It's really, really fantastic storytelling. So, I'm happy that Image and that Skybound has these properties because they're doing some great things with it. I mean, we're still in the early days here, so pretty excited to see where it goes.
It's the Matrix, but with robots and Reaganist soldiers.
It's exactly like the Matrix, except different. It's like Lawnmower Man meets the Matrix.
It's like the Matrix in 1983.
Yeah.
It's like the Matrix as New Coke.
I will stop. I would like to return the mental image that Steve gave us a minute ago about the milking of Megatron. I don't want that in my brain anymore. Can you take that back?
It's you milk them just like cats.
Just no.
Energon.
Why?
No. Just milking the Energon.
We've already talked about fingering. We've already talked about milking, and twice we've referenced libertarianism. Got to stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've taken a wrong turn.
Yeah, I believe Caleb has another book. So
so I'll go ahead just real short. So I've been doing a new thing. We talked about this a little bit last year, where I'm letting books build up and then reading entire books or arcs in the same one. And I did that with this. this titles as well. This is Killer Queens Volume 2 by Dark Horse Comics. I should say from Dark Horse Comics. It is written by David Boer, drawn by Bradley Clayton, with Harry Saxon on the colors, and a friend of the show, Louis Gattoni, on the letters.
Very quick question: was this the same creative team as the first volume?
I think so. I'd have to double check on the colors and stuff, but David Boer absolutely did the writing. I'm pretty sure it was Bradley Clayton. I could be wrong about that, but Louis Gattoni was he was the letterer on the other one. Different artist, yeah. David says it's a different artist, so that makes sense. Like I said, it's been a little bit since I read that other one. I had to go back and check, but this is fun, right? I love this book. It is lighthearted. It is quirky. It is queer as all hell. This is a sci-fi space super queer adventure, right? You met the two main characters in the first volume. They are just besties, right? They're assassins. They travel the universe and do things. They got themselves in a little bit of trouble with some owing some folks money, and so you see a little bit of that play back into this one. But long story short, on this one, they are doing their thing. They get into a little bit of a scrape, and they're at a galactic pride, which I kind of get depressed at the idea of a galactic pride. I would like to think that maybe Earth is the only place that pride is necessary, but it's not. And so there's a whole planet pride, right? Like that they're adding at, just doing pride things. They stumble upon a little bit of drama, right? They get into a little bit of scrape, and one of the main characters' history comes back and injects themselves into our life. You see on the cover, you see one of the main characters. She is full of snark, vim, and vigor. She's definitely one of the better assassins of the two. And she's just, she doesn't talk about her personal life, except apparently she has a sibling and a whole past that involves being a member of a royal family of a planet. Her father is extremely bigoted to a number of degrees, and so that comes back, and they have to figure out a way to work on that. When her sibling, who by the way is a kind of a non-binary winged individual, crashes their party and has to get there's a whole rescue sequence and stuff. Again, it's super fun, right? This is just some fun, quirky sci-fi. It is a rescue adventure. It deals with family stuff. It's super queer. There's a monkey with rocket packs with bear bodyguards, and I mean actual bear bodyguards, but in bear harnesses. It's fun stuff. So go check this out. I really, really enjoyed it. Just a fantastic sci-fi, again, hyper queer romp.
Well, David says here, Caleb, it's your turn to have a little Freudian moment. So, whenever you want to do that. I mean, we can go.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, work on that. And then also, James here, the Emperor's been milking Megatron. Now that's a comic I'd read in a heartbeat. Yeah, I'm be a different audience, I would think. Then, well, maybe this is the right audience for that. Fan fiction, people.
I'll show you one of my favorite spreads from this book, though. First issue, at Pride Planet. We've all done things at Pride we regret, right? Like that's a thing. Like, okay, maybe it's just
overpaying for food, I guess, from a vendor. Maybe?
Well, there's a variety of things.
I regret nothing. I'm glad there aren't pictures, but I regret nothing.
Well, one of our main heroes, he decides he's going to get a pride tattoo, and I don't know if you can see this. He gets a, for lack of a better way to say it, he gets a tramp stamp of a unicorn pooping rainbows, and the caption is, "Nothing says I'm a top like a unicorn pooping rainbows." It's great.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with every sentence. I did read the first. So I read the first volume. I really liked it. It was kind of hard because I had to jump from shop to shop to kind of collect the issues, because of course I didn't reserve them at my LCS, and so it was kind of like whoever had them still on their shelf, like I was picking them off.
Yeah.
But yeah, the same thing.
Definitely
with
have the first
two.
issue of the first volume. I wasn't even aware there was a second volume.
Yeah, I saw it came out like too late to actually put it on my full box. So
second volume just wrapped up, 4 issues. They left it open where there can be a third. Like I said, this one deals more so with family than the first one, though, and so I appreciate that, man. And I like the way there were battle axes involved. That's cool.
Definitely cool.
Okay, well, I guess we can move on to my non-comic talk. I don't have a second book, but I have something else I want to talk about. Steve, I think you have a few graphics there that you can put up.
do. Which one would you like to start with?
Put the first in time is the Live It Up, so just put that poster up, if you would. Okay. So I'm a big music fan, as you can see here. I also love movies. And one thing I've been doing, because even in situations where I have access to the film, I haven't watched many of these, is I've been watching the movies that were created almost specifically for the British market that involved their pop stars. That first, I'm starting with the acts that predate the Beatles, like Cliff Richard and various other acts in the 50s and Billy Fury. I still have to get to the Billy Fury that Steve was so graciously was able to obtain for me. But there's a series of 3 films that came out from the Rank organization that I think are really fascinating. And, when you think of the 60s rock films from this time, the first ones that come up to immediately come to mind are Hard Day's Night and Help. But there was almost a film for every band. Sorry, sneezing. I didn't hit mute button quick enough. And these were, as I said, 3 films that came out from the Rank organization, which was one of the major British studios at the time. And this wasn't just common to Britain. In the States, there were plenty of these too that were effectively jukebox musicals. It was a bunch of musical performances that basically held together a film that had some kind of plot. Dating back really to like the 1940s with some of the Great American Songbook stuff, but really came to prevalence when rock and roll hit with films like Rock Around the Clock from 1956. That's another story. This is Britain in 63 to 65. So the first film is Live It Up, and you'll see that there's a bunch of performers there. The one name that may be familiar out of here in terms of the actors is David Hemmings, who later on went on to become a very big film producer. He was one half of Helmdell. But probably his biggest film was Blow Up in 67, which was Antonioni's film about swinging in London. But it's a slightly younger version of him here at 22. And the story in Live It Up is it's a series of young kids who form a band and they want to get noticed. That's the whole plot line there. And there's such a charm to this. One of the other members of that band is Steve Marriott. If you're familiar with British rock, Steve Marriott was the leader of the Small Faces. But this is before he was in a band. He was a child actor. He was, I believe, the second Artful Dodger on the West End production of Oliver. So he had a legit acting pedigree. The performances run the gamut in this one. I did post on my Facebook page an instrumental group known as the Outlaws. The guitarist in the Outlaws was Richie Blackmore as a teenager. This is 5 years before Deep Purple happened. And if you're familiar with Richie Blackmore, he always was a very energetic stage presence, but I never saw him dancing before. I never saw him shaking his ass, and that was something else. The music, for most of the music, was produced and in some cases written by Joe Meek. If you're familiar with that name, it may be because of the film Telstar. He was a gay music producer in the 60s. And, that's another continuing trend through 60s British pop is there's a lot of gay figures that that play into it. Many on the management side, like Brian Epstein and Larry Page. But Joe Meek was one. If you see the film Telstar, that's his biography, and he had a very forward-looking style, almost like a Phil Spector of Britain, but was bigger on gimmicks than the soundscapes. And
without the murder, I would think.
No, he probably murdered his landlady and then killed himself. So the murder here too. Yeah, watch Telstar.
Those producers, man. Wow.
So
very much like.
Also, if you're familiar with fashion, many of the outfits were designed by Mary Quant, who later in 67 through 69 was one of the preeminent fashion designers, and Steve's doing her hair there too.
It was known as the Quant.
Yep. So Live It Up spawned a sequel, and that sequel was Be My Guest. I apologize for the quality of the posters that we're showing if you're watching on the live stream, but they're very hard to come by really good images. And Be My Guest is a direct sequel. 3 of the 4 band members that were in Be My Guest were in Live It Up go on to Be My Guest, where David Hemming's family moves to Brighton to open a bed and breakfast. He starts working for a newspaper, and there's a talent contest, and that's where all the music comes in. So you can see some of the names there: Jerry Lee Lewis, the Nashville Teens. I do have a DVD copy of Live It Up, but I don't have a official copy of Be My Guest, but these are out there. But really charming stuff, and especially seeing areas of England that were not London in the 60s, like as I mentioned, the seaside town of Brighton. There were some really interesting shots there. And then the last one, which it separates from the storylines, there's no direct correlation to the events here, but it's from the same company, Dateline Diamonds, which is from 1965. And you'll see a little box there with some of the bands that are there, Small Faces. We finally have Steve Marriott in a band, and it's the only footage available of the actual original lineup of the Small Faces with Jimmy Winston, who was their original keyboardist and second guitarist. I also have a very young Kiki D, 10 years before she joined up with Elton John for Don't Go Breaking My Heart. And this is a wonderful heist story with a former army officer and somebody that he's blackmailing into helping him steal diamonds that are smuggled out of the country by a pirate radio station that's anchored off the coast of England. If you've ever heard of pirate radio, what basically functioned in England was they were unable to get licenses because of the government stranglehold on broadcasting. But if you were in international waters, you could broadcast into England. So that's how pirate radio basically started. And this was the most interesting of the 3. It had the most bite in terms of the topics that was covered, and just seeing Small Faces. They're all teenagers. And it's so sad because they're all gone, apart from Kenny Jones, the drummer who later joined the Who after Keith Moon died. They're all gone, but it's just wonderful footage to see of them and in concert, and also kind of goofing around because they are the central storyline of the music there. And there's a fictionalized version of their manager. In real life, it was Don Arden, who is Sharon Osbourne's father. So there's a lot of connective tissue in terms of stuff that goes on today. But for these really charming but offbeat British films that have, some great unheard music, effectively, you can't do. Yeah, you can do worse. Live It Up, Dateline Diamonds, and Be My Guest.
So Edwin here mentions Deep Red.
Yeah, what is that, dude?
What is Deep Red?
What is Deep Red?
Maybe you can explain that a little bit. Just drop us another note, Edwin.
I said
and
Deep
then
Purple. I
Deep
didn't say
Purple.
Deep Red.
And then James Ferrer, as one does.
Those were-
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, David Hemmings. Here it is. David Hemmings' other major role.
Oh, and Deep. Yes, yes, yes.
There we
Yes,
go.
that's true. Yeah, I still think Blow Up is better known than that.
Dario
but-
that Deep Red. I was like, it sounds familiar. Yes. Yes.
I thought he was
Deep
mocking
Red,
me for
okay.
saying. I thought maybe I like screwed up and said Deep Red instead of Deep Purple. I could not conceive of that happening.
I have. It's so funny because I don't know. I don't know a lot of like 60s British actors or anything like that, but I do know, Yellow films. So, That's right. But yeah, so that's actually pretty neat. It's been fun trying to find these films for you.
Yeah.
Because just knowing how obscure a lot of them are, and how rarely they're shown. Some of them aren't even ever re-released on DVD. Some of them were released on VHS. But interestingly enough, I know a lot of people were collecting them because they've aired on British TV, on classic TV networks and whatnot. But
you've had
they're
you've
hard to
had
come
the
by.
odd film on TCM. I don't think you'll be seeing it now since with the restructuring, there's not that much outsourcing. That I would say insourcing. They're not. It's mostly just stuff from the Warner's library right now, until they get their shit together. But they have had nights of British invasion films, but they've been some of the more popular acts like, and that's a thing. Like they're all really interesting. The Dave Clark Five, which was not one of the groups that had the most integrity out of the British invasion groups, have this amazing film. It's dark, it's gritty, it's subversive. It's called Catch Me If You Can. And it's really good. And John Borman, who was the director, later went on to stuff like Deliverance, like some great films. Definitely watch that. There were 2 American made films with Herman's Hermits. There are god awful. Shelley Fabre, who was just a beauty when she was younger. There's nothing to recommend those 2 for. But it's been interesting because it's kind of like I jumped from Doctor Who, Adam Ant Lives to the Avengers to this stuff. And it's this is all stuff before I was born, and it's like another planet effectively. Yeah. So it's just really interesting, especially seeing the shots of the locales as London and other areas were at that time.
It's like the pre-swinging 60s, really. It's that era that's right before
swinging London. Yeah, it's just before swinging London. We call it the British invasion, but they weren't invaded; they were members. It's usually something like the beat music era or something. Doesn't have quite that beautiful ring as the British invasion. But
what were those 2 beat movies? Something on the Mersey. There was a
Ferry Across the Mersey, which has Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Yep.
And then you also had this like really bizarre science fiction film called Gonks Go Beat that you downloaded for us. That is crazy, but there's like this amazing sequence where there's a battle of drummers, and some of them are drummers before they gain fame, like Ginger Baker from Cream Before Cream. And the storyline is seriously out there. Like the drug intake must have hit a little earlier than we thought. Get there, but yeah.
I mean, for me, like this kind of falls in line. I'm a huge, Mystery Science Theater 3000 person, and I know that there are several of the films that they've watched throughout the years that kind of fall into that, where there's sort of like a featured musical act that plays a really strong role, whether it makes sense in the plot or not. That's featured, and they do a lot of the music that's then featured in the film too. So, there's always going to be a scene in a nightclub or a dance club. There's always going to be a scene on a beach, especially the 50s. I mean, anything from the 50s, everybody was on the beach making music or,
A
dancing.
little later, 60s. Yeah.
Well, in the 60s too, but you're just sort of like you're getting a lot of that on the US side, but I don't know how many of those really kind of made it through if they were just sort of like throwing everything out there and B movies just to kind of try to recreate, the big rock and roll names like any of the Elvis movies or anything with Frankie Avalon. But interesting stuff. Cool.
So that's what I was watching while I should have been reading comics, I guess.
I say good.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to wrap this episode up. I'm so glad we were able to get back together. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, what we do, we actually have a segment where we call it Geek Gets. We did that with Christmas. We're skipping it. So we're going to go right on to something we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar where we woof at something, which may be a comic book, but it may also be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week is, of course, TV related. And I was kind of going back and forth because there have been two shows that I've absolutely been loving since I came back from vacation. One of them is a nightly late night show after midnight, so I recommend that. But the one that I really want to talk about is Death is in the Details. Right here, a beautiful Hulu series. It's only 4 parts. At least that's what I'm understanding. It's only going to be a 4-part miniseries. But basically, it features Mandy Patinkin as a washed up private investigator detective who has a connection to the other main character played by Violet Bean, who is a ward of an extremely wealthy corporate family. And they all sort of meet up, on this cruise ship. And there's a murder. And just the twists, the turns, who's really at fault, who's trustworthy, who's gonna, be hiding a lot more stuff than just the murder. It all sort of comes out. It's a great mystery. If you are fans of anything like The Glass Onion or, anything from Rian Johnson, if you're a fan of that, this has very similar Rian Johnson vibes. And it's also got a lot of humor in it, too. So you do have a lot of those sort of fun, punchy conversations that happen, some really great reveals, and just a really good cast. I've got my, my perma crush, Raul Coley is in here as well as the architect of this cruise ship, but also a suspect potentially, just being handsome and debonair and awesome. But yeah, I totally recommend this if you want to give it a shot. It is on Hulu. It is a weekly series with new episodes on Tuesdays. The 3rd episode was just released this week. The last episode is next week, which I believe is the 30th of January.
Yeah. Post iZombie, Rahul's really had a pretty good afterlife there in terms of streaming shows. Some really big projects he's been involved in.
The Fall of the House of Usher, I mean, his role in that, I mean, he was absolutely despicable, but also it kind of was like, can I like...
Right, yeah, no, I was with you, yeah.
Oh, Raul.
All right. Over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
So like Steve, my woof of the week also goes out to a television show that is on streaming, but I'm going to go for a different service. This one is on Netflix, and the show that I have been really, really enjoying right now is called Louder Milk. Again, you can find this all up and in the Netflix. In this show, the actor Ron Livingston, if you're not familiar with him, he is fantastic. He was in The Conjuring. He's been on Office Space back in the 90s. He's been in a bunch of stuff, right? He's really good. I think he was actually in the Flash movie too, but I don't remember that. I try not to remember much about that. Anyway,
he's been in a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude's been doing work. So he plays a bit of a curmudgeon. He is a recovering alcoholic whose job Well, not really his job. He has just a day job to pay the bills, but kind of what this centers on is the fact that he leads a recovery group. And he's a curmudgeon. He's a cynical asshole, and that's just kind of how he's known, because he's been through a lot. And in this movie, like, of course, not this movie, this show, the chaos really comes when the church, or the parish, I should say, that he hosts his meetings in, the parishioner comes up and is like, "Hey, one of our members needs to talk to you. Her daughter's strung out on heroin, and you've got to go fix it. Or you're going to lose your spot here." So he goes and he does his thing, introduces them in a most cynical kind of way. And it all kind of blows up from there, but it ends up kind of working, and she ends up like crashing with him. It is amazing. The dialogue in this is great. Like, it is very hard to deliver this kind of just like deadpan cynicism in the most sarcastic way possible. He's fantastic. I personally happen to think Ron Livingston is a very attractive man. So I enjoy watching him in this. It's nice. But life comes at you fast, right? Like, it's chipping the ice away a little bit. He's built up these walls around him. You get to know some of his story, his past. He was a music journalist, right? Like, he worked for people like Rolling Stones and stuff like that, wrote several books and followed bands around and got to see him do all the shenanigans and got to be a part of it. Just played part of his alcoholism. Bill, you would love this. There are tons of quirky little moments in this where they're talking about music history, right?
Cool.
All through the 80s and 90s. It's in early 2000s. In the show, he writes a book, something about the 500 songs to kill yourself to, right? It's actually about the 500 worst songs of that, but it is hilarious. But again, the girl kind of starts chipping away. He meets a neighbor that he's attracted to. But for me, the best part of this is actually Will Sasso. Will Sasso is a great supporting actor. He is in this. He plays Loudermilk's roommate, and also he is Loudermilk's sponsor. He's also a recovering alcoholic. Does an amazing job, right? Like, this is probably one of the better roles that I've seen Will Sasso in, and he's been in a lot of cool roles. It is delightful. It really is. Well, I should say Will Sasso is delightful. The show in and of itself is not necessarily delightful, but it is hilarious in the most dark kind of humor ways. The guy pulls no punches. He will just drop it on you. It is fantastic. So go check this out.
I do want to.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh yeah, I just want to say, like, I know this started on another streaming service before it got picked up by Netflix, but I want to say the third season might have been produced by Netflix. I'm not 100%, but I do know it started somewhere else and then got acquired.
Yeah, I just discovered this, so it's all on Netflix for me.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's not a show I watch, but how long has Sasso been on Young Sheldon?
According to IMDb, he played on Young Sheldon in 22 and 23.
Okay.
That's what he's credited on.
It was only
IMDb.
the other day that I saw that he was a character on that.
He was also in Marvelous Miss Maisel, which was amazing. It was great. I loved him in that.
Yeah, both Steve and I ended up watching that terrible sitcom United We Fall.
Yep.
But I love him as a screen presence.
Yeah.
He's a great comedic supporting actor, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even if you go back to his, what was it, Mad TV stuff, like, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
He was to me, I first saw him in Drop Dead Gorgeous, and
yeah,
I was hooked just from his touching portrayal of a man plagued by disability, but truly coming into his own by the end.
All right. Well, for my woof of the week, I'm going against the grain from you two. I actually have something that is comic book related, but it is also viewing pleasure. So, Steve, I know you have the graphic, but I can also put this up here. This came out this week, 2 days ago. Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. Yes, they are still making DC original animated movies. Apparently, they still turn enough of a profit that it makes sense for them. It's still viable, and God knows Warner's would cut it off at the knees if it wasn't. So, the current predominant theme in the animated universe films that they have right now is something called the Tomorrowverse, which started with Superman Man of Tomorrow. This is actually the conclusion of the Tomorrowverse as we move into the Peter Safran James Gunn period of the DC universe. So they are putting the Tomorrowverse to bed, but they're putting it to bed in style with an adaptation of Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is somewhat of a premature Woof because I only got it today. It's still in the wrapping, but I'm almost certain I am going to enjoy elements of this, if not the whole thing. It's been a long time that they've had this program going. The animated universe, again, the conceit in the past was direct to video, and it still is basically direct to video. It just might be that you're buying it through a streaming service or through Amazon or one of those things instead of actually getting home video. But me, I gotta have the home video. Interesting thing about what's after this, though, is these films are going to continue. The only one that's been officially announced has been Watchmen. There was a variety ad for voice talent, and it was pretty clear that the project that they were advertising for was the new Teen Titans, the Judas Contract.
Mm-hmm.
So Watchmen is happening. These are going to be standalone films, and apparently one of the big selling points is the art styles are going to be as close as they can manage from the original books to animation.
Really?
So the thought of having a Perez and Wolfman contract, I like, like to say I'm there is an understatement. But I think that's a great way of continuing these, not necessarily being worried about the continuity. I imagine they'll come out under the Elseworlds title, that they're going to be putting on things that are not necessarily within that DC universe construct that James Gunn is overseeing. And this is the first of 3, so it's going to be pretty monumental in terms of the amount of time. I mean, this is, I believe, 2 hours. So a 6-hour Crisis on Infinite Earths, I'm okay with that. I really am. So that's my Wolf of the Week.
There goes Bill Saturdays for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to mention too. Also, I think I can't recall, but I think in my head I was saying "Death is in the Details." Death and Other Details is the name of the show. I don't know why I was thinking Death is. Anyway, just want to correct that. But yeah, I have absolutely loved, all the animated movies from the DCAU that came before this one that ended with, I think it was like the Apocalypse War. That whole thing with
which was like kind of DC 52 was kind of new.
Yeah,
52-ish,
I love that. I thought that was so good. There's
I
been
thought
some other
the voice talent on those were great. The voice,
100%.
Oh, that was
100%.
The voice talent was just like right on the money. On those.
Yeah, and the Tomorrowverse I've really enjoyed too. Like the Man of Tomorrow was so good. It was so good.
I really enjoyed Justice Society. I know a lot of people didn't. I know that Legion of Superheroes was very divisive.
I don't know why.
The Long Halloween seems to be. It seems most people, had a lot of good things to say about the Long Halloween. But good stuff.
The Death in the Family wasn't a part of that, was it? Because I think that was the one that got the most, just like chagrin, like that was just lambasted the most.
No, that was a scandal. Yeah, that was a scandal.
I thought that would have been The Killing Joke when they tried to.
The Killing Joke. Yeah,
maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm thinking of The Killing Joke.
Yeah, because if you did The Killing Joke animated, it's like 32 minutes long, and they had all this barber stuff, and it really
you got a naked Jim Gordon.
Yeah. In a collar, in a leather studded collar. That's a plus.
That was a plus.
Also, just before we go, I wanted to wish a very happy 50th birthday to friend of the show and former guest Brad Taylor of Warner Brothers. He celebrated his 50th. He did something really cool. He and friends and relations went to Disneyland, and they tried to do 50 attractions. They got to 30, but they tried to do 50 in one day. So hats off to that for even managing 30.
Moving.
I would have been bitching about,
especially with lines and that can be tough.
But
awesome.
Happy birthday to him. So we're wrapping this up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on, oh, damn it, this went to thing. I even was prepped this time because I had the old intro. You can find us on the Instagram and the X and the Blue Sky and Threads as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so through Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and from other podcatching platforms. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to Comic Book Bears. If you have joined us through Facebook Live, thank you. If you are watching us later on YouTube, thank you. Please like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Billy Z.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
If you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And since I've watched a lot of British films, let's just call it a fortnight. Take care, everyone.
Bye.